What's up guys, my name is Josh and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be speaking about the esports scene, kind of like different avenues about it, how tough it is to get into the to the pro competitive side of things, and my experiences and my views and my opinions on kind of how tough it is and how many what resources there are out there and how you can kind of progress and just my experiences with it basically. So let's jump straight into it. Basically for me, I'm finding it really tough to kind of, I guess, break into the pro scene. I don't really, there are tons of resources. For example, actually last night Plex Chat just released their new incentive, which is what they're calling Path to Pro, and it's a great incentive actually. Basically what they're doing is they're doing they're letting anyone apply. Anybody that thinks they're good enough can apply basically, and then they're going to do qualifiers. So you have to, let me start from the beginning. Basically you have to sign up, you have to download Plex Chat, and it will take you to this Path to Pro page, or room I guess what they call it, and then you can sign up. Basically you have to send your details through, or send your player profile through Stats Royale, and then that's how you sign up. And then basically on the 28th is when they're going to start doing qualifiers, and so it's a great way for new and up and coming people who think that they're good enough and who think that they can compete to be able to basically showcase their skills. And once you go through qualifiers, you'll then move on to a bracket play, and once you go through bracket play, you'll then basically be offered talks with pro teams, and you'll train with pro teams, and hopefully the incentive would be to get a pro contract. So it's a great opportunity for anyone who thinks that they're good enough, or thinks that they compete with pro players, or thinks that they're ready to take that step up to be a pro. And for me personally, it's perfect. It's exactly what I've been looking for. I wish Clash Royale would do more things like this. I know it's still new. It's obviously the whole esports scene with Clash Royale is still incredibly new, and it's quite new with mobile gaming in general. I understand that and I get that completely. So it's great what Plex Chat are doing, and I hope Clash Royale can follow and do more incentives, because at the moment, unless you're already a pro player, it's incredibly tough to break into the scene. You have leagues like the RPL League and the ESL League, if I'm not mistaken, but it's good to compete in those and get match play. Don't get me wrong, it really is, but I don't think that it's the best way to break out. If you look at pro players now who have broken out, for example Colton, he goes to an event he goes to King's Cup, right? I'm not sure where it was held. It might be California. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was California, because that's where he lives. He went to that event and he competed, but unless you can physically go to an event, it's tough to kind of showcase yourself or break out, basically, because another example, Volcan, or who broke out in King's Cup 2 in Atlanta. Unless you live in these places, it's tough to kind of showcase your name and showcase what you're about and your skills. Like for example, if they had an event in London, or which is where I live, or near London, I would immediately go, because I know that's the best opportunity for me to get onto the scene by competing well in that, and by getting airtime on the live stream, and by people seeing me and seeing my skills and being able to show what I'm about in front of other pro players. I think that's the best way, but it's just incredibly tough because they don't hold that many events at the moment, and when they do, most of the time they're either in America or Asia, or that's the route they're going to be taking. I feel like the World Finals this year in November are going to be held in China. It's either China or Korea. I'm not too sure. I think it's China. I'm pretty sure it's China. But I can't fly to China and compete in that because I don't have the money. So it's tough for people to, unless you live in that area where the event's being held, it's tough to compete and break out basically. So I think this Plex Chat Path to Pro is a great great opportunity for anybody that thinks they're good enough. And I know that I will be competing in it because I think that I'm good enough and I have the skills to become a pro player. And this is the exact opportunity that I've been waiting for and looking for. So, touch wood, I can do well in that, and I can showcase what I'm about and break out into the scene. But in terms of where I think it's going and what I think Clash Royale needs to do or where they need to take it, I just think they purely need to make more events. They have the King's Cup, they have the CCGS, and then obviously the World Finals, and they probably have a couple other little events. Like I would say they have 4 or 5 events a year. For me, that's not enough. I keep everything I'm saying right now with the asterisk. It's still new and it's still developing. I completely understand that. So I'm not bashing on them in any way whatsoever. I completely get it. I'm just giving my opinion on what I think that needs to, the way that they need to progress. I'm sure they already know, and they've got plans to do stuff, which is great. They've got big plans this year, so I'm looking forward to that, to see what I can, see how I can compete in the tournaments that they're going to be offering. I know I'm definitely going to compete in CCGS again. Last year I lost to Lupanji, who obviously got to the World Finals. So it was a tough loss for me, but also it was nice to see that he got to the finals, because then that justified to me that I lost to him. Had I beaten him, I could have potentially been in the same position as him had I performed well. Of course, it's all variables, and I can't just say, oh, had I beaten Lupanji, I would have gone on to the final. No, it wouldn't work like that. I would have had to perform, like he did. He performed amazing, being surgical, Luai, Baron, great players, and he beat them all in a row to get to the final. So I take nothing away from him. But what I'm saying is, this year I'm going to compete in CCGS. Last year I lost to Lupanji. For me, great learning experience. Also losing to a top guy is quite gratifying in a way, to know that he went on to win, that CCGS Invitational, and then obviously he went to the final. So it's quite nice to know that the only person that I lost to was a top 16 player in the world. That was quite nice for me, because then that just kind of justifies to me that I'm a good player. Not that I need it, but I'm not to sound big-headed, but I'm good at the game, and I want to be able to showcase my skills and grab that pro contract. So hopefully I can do that with Plex Chat. And getting back to it, I think basically what Clash Royale needs to do, or Supercell needs to do, is just have way more events. They have a ton of revenue and they know exactly where the game's going. They know what they're doing. They're not stupid. They're very smart. I think that there needs to be smaller events, and then obviously the prize money needs to be filtered down, so people have the incentive to be able to compete and be able to actually challenge. I for example, if there's a tournament in France, that might be viable for me to fly out to, because I live in England, so England, France is not that far. But the prize money would have to justify me spending money on a plane. Do you see what I'm saying? There has to be some incentives for kind of new players to be able to to compete. Unless you get signed by a pro team, obviously, that's the ultimate way to break in. However, that's incredibly tough, because how do you kind of go about that? Unless you're in the right clan, unless you know the right people, it's tough. You can't just go to a pro team and say, oh, hey, can you sign me? I'm a very good player. They don't know that. They can't just take your word for it. So unless you're already in a clan that kind of is an esports team or knows connections or knows people, it's going to be tough for you. So I can't stress enough how important this Plex Chat Path to Pro initiative is. When they released it last night, and I was on my phone, and the notification popped up, and I was shocked. This was the exact thing I was looking for, and I was so happy. And hopefully I can do well and progress into the scene and show what I'm about and show my name and I just think to sum things up, I think just like I say, Clash Royale just needs to kind of put more incentives out there and put more events together, and I think that they will. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that they won't do it. I think 100% that they will this year. I think this year is going to be huge year for Clash Royale in terms of esports and the direction they're going to take. This year could define their whole esports career, essentially, or their platform. It could define everything, because if they don't get it right this year, I think that a lot of people will migrate to other games. That's just my opinion. I don't know what other people think or what other people are saying, but I think that they'll do good things this year. You know, they've got the CCGS again, and then they've got they'll most definitely do a Kings Cup 3, I would assume. Hopefully they can sprinkle like 4 or 5 more events in there somewhere for lower players to kind of be able to break in and, you know, and show what they're about, and hopefully Clash Royale does a good job for that. I have good faith that they will, and yeah, I think they'll nail it this year, and this is a big year for them, so they need to do well, and I hope they do well. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the esports scene at the moment. You know, very good. You know, I think definitely some improvements can be made, but you know, they're going in the right direction, which is the most important thing. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.